All right, we are on page 101 in our math book, lesson 14, so make sure you are on the page with me. If you need to pause the video at any point in time, you can. Okay, we are going to compare fractions. When we compare fractions, we have to make sure our denominators are the same. Because 2/3 has a 3 in the denominators and 5/6 has a 6 in the denominators, we're going to have to make them the same before we can compare. To do that, we take 2/3 and we times it by the opposite denominator, which is 6. So 2 times 6 equals 12, and 6 times 3 equals 18. Now we take the opposite fraction, so 5/6, and we're going to multiply it by the opposite denominator, which is 3. Now we have 5 times 3, which is 15, and 6 times 3, which is 18. So we look at 12 eighteenths and 15 eighteenths, and we know 15 is greater than 12, so 5/6 is greater than 2/3. Looking at our next one, we have 3/8 and 1/4, so we take 3/8, times it by its opposite denominator, which is 4. 3 times 4 is 12, and 8 times 4 is 32. We do the same thing with 1/4, but we times it by the opposite denominator, which is 8. And now we take 1 times 8, which is 8, and 4 times 8, which is 32. We know that 12 is greater than 8, so 12/32 is greater than 8/32, so 3/8 would be greater. All right, let's look down at 5. So we have 3/4 and 3/7. We start with 3/4. We're going to times 3/4 by the opposite denominator, which is 7. And we get 21/28. Now we take 3/7 times it by the opposite denominator, which is 4. And we get 12/28. Our denominators are the same. We know that 21 is greater than 12, so we know that 3/4 is greater than 3/7. Okay, let's look at C. We have 7/10 and 3/5. So we take 7/10 and times it by the opposite denominator, which is 5. And that equals 35/50. We do the same thing with the opposite fraction, so 3/5 times it by the opposite denominator, which is 10. And now we have 30/50. We know that 35 is greater than 30, so 7/10 is greater than 3/5. Okay, so now we're going to start the next one. We're going to say 3/4 times it by its opposite denominator, which is 12. If you don't know your 12's facts, remember you can find a number close to it and count up. So you could say 2 times 12 equals 24. So 3 times 12, if we add 12 more to 24, what do we get? 36. So we have 36. And if you're not sure about 4 times 12, you could say 4 times 12. So if I take 36 plus 12 more, I get 48. So I'd have 48. Okay, then we do the opposite. We're going to say 11/12 times it by opposite denominator, which is 4. 11 times 4, 44, And 12 times 4, we just did that, which is 48. And we know 44 is greater than 36, so 11/12 would be greater. All right, I'm going to have you do a couple of practice problems. So I'm going to have you go back up to the top and do C and D as practice problems. When you are done with C and D, make sure you show your work. Then you're working on lesson 14, Zern. Make sure you are working in your notebook, watching the video, and if you don't get finished, you should be working at home.